Let's take a trip back in time. The year is 2017. Donald Trump just got elected as president, the UK moonwalked out of the EU, and worst of all, the Catch Me Outside girl was featured for the first time.
Catch me outside! How about that?
Oh, and also, Firewall Dragon was released. Firewall Dragon was an obscenely broken card that should have never made it to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But for reasons I will get to later, was not banned until 1.5 years after its release. But what made this Link 4 Blue Eyes White Dragon so meta-defining that even the most devoted of players were thinking about quitting? Well, that is exactly what I'm here to talk to you about. Firewall Dragon essentially has two effects. His first one is that you can get monsters back to your hand up to the number of monsters that are co-linked to it. This is once per turn. Notice how I didn't say hard once per turn? His second effect is that every time a monster that is linked, not co-linked, with him dies and is sent to the graveyard in any way, you could special summon one monster from your hand. This is not once per turn. If you have played Yu-Gi-Oh! For even 10 minutes, you can already see what the problem is. There was also a multitude of FTKs involving this card, but I will get to them later. 22 days, that was the time people had to prepare for this card. Because 22 days after Firewall's release, YCS Rimini was happening. So of course everyone built the best deck with Firewall Dragon and... oh. Yeah, no one played the card. There was only one Firewall Dragon in the top 8, in Joshua Schmidt's True Draco Demise deck, and that was only because he was running Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. But it is still significant. Joshua Schmidt, I would argue one of the best players of all time, thought the card was good enough to be ready with the Ghost Reaper. But what I did not tell you was that at the same time, there was another YCS happening in Toronto, Canada, and here one of the players actually played Firewall Dragon. The man, the myth, the legend. Eric Dalton brought a dinosaur FTK deck and got to top 32. But how in the hell do you FTK with dinos, you might ask? Well, the loop is super complicated, but basically you do some true king dino firewall shenanigans until your board looks like this, and from then you loop Grand Soil until you can get back 2 Manticores, overlay those into Phantom Fortress, and banish one card from their deck. And then you would do the loop indefinitely until all of your opponent's cards were banished. A month after that, in September of 2017, YCS Austin, Texas would take place. And surprise surprise, out of the top 32 decks, 32 of them had Firewall Dragon in it. But wait, what is that? In the distance I can see something coming. The September 2017 ban list is one of the most brutal ones I've seen in a long time, completely changing the meta. It banned Daigusto, Danglong, Dynamite, Grand Soil, Lithosagan, Broadbull, and Trident. There were also a multitude of cards limited, but we got the gateway of the 6-bag, so your one friend that still plays 6 Samurai can have fun.
And today guys, I'm coming at you with my 6 Samurai deck profile.
Jokes aside, with the ban list being this impactful, players had to come up with something new. And boy did they come up with something new.
Hello everybody and welcome back to YCS London 2017 Spiral.
Spiral 16 game.
Spiral
Resort. Firewall Dragon.
Spiral Mission Rescue. Spiral Quick Fix.
A Spiral Drone.
Spiral
Spiral Deck.
Choo Choo all aboard the Spiral Catamaran.
A few days before YCS Dallas, Texas, Konami released Circuit Break, and with it, Spiral Double Helix. Spiral was actually an older archetype released in 2016, but due to it having a lot of non-once per turn effects, namely Quick Fix and Master Plan, it was the perfect deck for Firewall Dragon to fit in. The combo of the deck is also way too long to explain, but in short, you would end with a U-Link so your opponent can't summon monsters from the extra deck. Yeah, remember that? A sleeper, which could pop 2 monsters from your opponent, and a utility wire, with 5 cards in hand, one of which is for sure a hand trap. So from here on until January of 2018, it was a tier 0 format. Literally everyone and their grandma was playing Spiral. Luckily, Konami did see that there was a problem and banned the card. Oh no, what is this? Yeah, they didn't ban the card. But why only limit it? They clearly saw the problem, but they must have known you can't just limit the card. That won't solve the core issue it had. Here we get into corporate politics, and why Firewall Dragon was legal for such a long time. In the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, which was Vrains at the time, Firewall was the protagonist's main boss monster. And because of that, Konami had to ask its parent company, Studio Gallop, for permission to do something with the card. Well, obviously they did not want the card banned, because what if Jimmy wants to go to his locals and play with his favorite card, Firewall Dragon? But, oh shock, he can't because the card is not allowed. Jimmy will go home and never touch the game again. Or something like that, is what Japanese corporate men were probably thinking when discussing this issue. So the card was limited for a while. Some even thought that we had to wait for the end of the anime before we could finally see that Firewall Dragon forbidden. Luckily it wasn't that bad. But Konami did do what they do best. Ban every card that is good with the actual problem card instead of the problem card. Sounds familiar? Finally, in February of 2018, they limited Firewall. So that means the card was bad now, right? Right? Well, no. It was not as oppressive as before, sure, but it was still the same powerhouse. And with the release of newer archetypes, people still found a plethora of different ways to abuse it. And one of those strategies was Trickster. In general, the deck was a very slow burn you to death control strategy, with a funny loop where you could roll and lockbird your opponent and then use Trickster Reincarnation to discard his whole hand. But it wasn't considered meta up until then. People already knew about this Trickster Firewall combo. If your opponent had a monster with more than 1600 attack, you could crash your Lycoris into it, it dies, triggering your Firewall, then you summon Lilybell from the hand attacking directly. Lilybell then bounces itself to special summon another Trickster monster from your hand. You special summon Lilybell and then you get the same loop until your opponent is dead. Hell, they even ran scapegoats to turbo out Firewall. Later on they added Sky Striker cards to the mix, which just made the whole strategy more consistent. Printing a searchable Pot of Greed may have been a mistake. But up until that point, Spiral was too oppressive. No other deck could compete. But now, Trickster rose to prominence as the best Firewall deck. In June of 2018, Cody Engolf even won a YCS with this strategy, backed up by the Sky Striker engine. There is one more prominent deck that used Firewall, but before I talk about that, let me make a short detour. It is October of 2018. Firewall has now been legal for over a year and YCS London is coming up. A group of very talented Yu-Gi-Oh players from America that were hurled up in their basement for months trying to come up with the most degenerate strategy that they can think of, decided to come to Europe to show what they found. And the leader of that group? None other than the combo connoisseur, Jesse Kotton. They came up with one of the most unique and also skill-intensive decks I've seen up until now. And in round 1 of YCS London, Jesse could show his deck to its full extent.
Here we see Toon Cannon Soldier, and now this is the combo game because you can distribute off the Mermaid, summon a Dark World, bounce for Grapha, and rinse and repeat.
Yep, you just saw Jesse Kotton FTKing a 12-year-old kid who set a UFO turtle and passed the turn. There were some great memes from that at the time. I'll link the match in the video description if you want to watch it. While the deck was pretty good in what it did, it still faltered in top 32. It worked something like this. First you would summon a bunch of danger monsters, hoping to hit Dark World cards to discard them and trigger their effects. Then you would go into Azathoth to lock your opponent out of using hand traps. Then you would do a bunch of Link summoning until you hit Firewall Dragon with a Grapha and a Cannon Soldier as well as Bro in the hand. Then you could loop Cannon Soldier's effect, sending Grapha, activating Firewall to special summon Bro, then get back Grapha from the grave, dealing 500 points of damage every loop. I actually just wanted to talk about the deck so I can tell you guys how Jesse FTK'd a 12-year-old kid, but let's move on to the next one. There was another deck that was using Firewall as its main win condition, which was Goki. The whole archetype was Warrior, which meant that he could run one of the best extra deck monsters to date, Isolde. Isolde lets you summon one Warrior monster from the deck, all for the low cost of 2 Warrior monsters. But you had to run some bricky equipment cards. Well, the answer for that issue was Danger. Honestly, Dangers deserve their own video at this point. With them you could just discard your useless cards and draw new ones. Then you would go and do some Link shenanigans with Firewall and your end board would look something like this. Then you Gamla your opponent twice, looping 4 cards out of his hand, negating one of them with Trigate, and the game was basically over. At YCS Pasadena, it was the last time we saw Firewall in action. Oh, and also 2 guys got arrested for trying to steal Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Bro, what the fuck?
Sadly, I can't even show you anything from the event, because for some reason Konami and A thought it was a good idea to only do written coverages up until 2019. Obviously, these are not all the decks that were running this card. But if I talked about all of them, this video would be 2 hours long. But here are some funny ones to look back on. Infernity FTK, Wild Chalice, Link Blue Eyes, 60 card Pent by our very own Triff Gaming, Vampire Lord. I have no idea how this deck works, so if anyone knows, let me know in the comments. And basically, that's Firewall Dragon. From an underutilized card at its release, a tier 0 format, and a plethora of FTKs, it had everything you did not want from a card. And corporate politics let the card stay in the meta for way too long. And while it did facilitate a bunch of funny moments, it is just another card on Konami's long list of design mistakes. And with that, I will leave you to your own devices. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And with that, until next time, peace.